Hello there. Recently, I beat Bloodborne on mobile, and it was a unique experience, shall we say. So it's time to do it all over again. Only this time, I'm going to be playing Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled. I haven't actually played this game seriously since I got the Platinum Trophy and I beat a couple of the dev times way back in the day. So there's my excuse out of the way as to why this will most likely be completely full of failure and very embarrassing. Once again, this will be played on an iPhone 6, which has a screen size of about 5 inches. Which, if you were to ask me, I would say that 5 inches is incredibly large. Massive, in fact. But anyway, enough gab. Let's get straight on into adventure mode and see if we can indeed beat Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled on mobile with remote play. I'll be playing this on normal difficulty because I'd actually like to see past the first track. Now, driving the car on mobile isn't too much of a challenge. It's easy enough just to hold down X and turn the car, most of the time anyway. But anyone who knows CTR knows that this is not going to be enough to win any of the races. You can't just drive and expect to win. You need to master the drift. To do a drift, you need to drive forwards and then turn a corner, and while you're doing it, you press L1 and you initiate the drift. You then wait for the boost meter to fill up and you press R1 at the correct time and you hit the boost. You can do this 3 times per drift, and if you get 3 perfect boosts, that'll give you the biggest speed buff. You can also press R1 to drift and L1 to boost. It doesn't matter which way you do it. It's up to you. On a normal controller, this is fairly easy to get used to because of ergonomics. However, on a touchscreen, it's a little bit different. Now, the only way I've been able to figure this out is to raise my leg and place the phone against the top of my knee. And then I have to do a kind of claw grip. I look like bloody Nosferatu. It's a very strange way of holding something. Anyway, let's start the game. I'm going to be playing as the Crate because they are obviously the greatest character of all time. One of the first tracks in the game is Crash Cove, and it's where most people will start, and it's definitely one of the easiest tracks in the entire game. So, while it might look a bit like I'm incredibly skilled and talented here, don't let that fool you. This is a track that a 5-year-old could probably complete. You know, it's essentially a tutorial level. There's a couple of obstacles here and there, and it's mostly just a circle. Although I will admit, I was quite impressed with myself for being able to hit the shortcut. The experience was slightly marred, however, because I kept changing the camera and missing a lot of drifts. Which is totally not a sign of things to come or anything like that. You know, I didn't keep changing the camera or looking behind myself or missing loads of drifts. That didn't happen. So yeah, I beat this track fairly easily. But like I say, it's essentially just a tutorial level, so let's not start wetting our knickers just yet. Next up is Ruse Tubes. Once again, this is a nice and easy track just to get you comfortable with the game. Although I did realise here that it would be almost impossible to use any of the power-ups. I'm pinching the phone like a crab, so trying to move my thumb away from the acceleration, not too easy. But you never know, I will probably have to try and use them at some point, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this race went alright, I'd say. I tried to take the shortcut, but I kind of messed it up a little bit. But that's fine, I still managed to get some good boosts and take the corners nice enough, and I got far enough ahead that any mistakes, it wouldn't really make too much of a difference. It's a good track, I like this one, usually. Next up we have Mystery Caves. This is a bit of a harder track because now we have some environmental hazards. Luckily, I managed to avoid them. However, I'm still slapping my fingers into the wrong buttons and I'm changing the camera, along with missing some boosts. I have to say though, the AI has been incredibly kind and hasn't really attacked me very much. And they've also been lagging behind a bit, which is really good. Because whilst it might seem like I'm doing really well, all things considering, I am of course sliding all over the track and my accuracy is pretty much non-existent. So I'm quite thankful that these tracks are fairly wide and the hazards are generally quite predictable, and it's nice and easy, to begin with anyway. So of course, I took the victory. The next track on the list is Sewer Speedway. I love this track. However, the first run went incredibly horribly. I was messing up in almost every aspect. I tried to hit the shortcut and for whatever reason I just could never manage it. I also forgot how to reverse and then I got squashed by the barrel. Absolutely atrocious. I did manage to use a couple of power-ups though, which is nice, and I did put up a somewhat decent fight considering the poor start and the constant failure of never being able to hit that shortcut. So it was looking okay towards the end, you know, maybe I could have won. However, I messed up really hard at the end, and it may have landed me in 8th place. That was terrible. So I tried again, of course, we have to. The second try was much better. I got better drifts and I actually managed to hit the shortcut on every single lap. I was still sliding all over the track though, so I'm glad this stage isn't in the sky or anything. Could you imagine that? But yeah, I redeemed myself on the second run and I managed to take the victory. Being able to hit these shortcuts consistently is very important. Once you've beaten all the tracks in a given zone, you unlock the boss race. Now before I even discuss how boss races work, I'm just going to show you how horrible the connection was for my first try. I have no clue why this happens randomly sometimes, and I don't even know what's going on the screen, but something was sucking on my megabit really hard. The connection was actually so bad that it kicked me out of the app. It's not very often that I experience that, so something's going on here. So of course I had to restart everything and try again. Now I can actually talk about how boss races work. Racing against the bosses is not just racing against a faster opponent. Oh no. These guys have special abilities that make them quite the tough adversary. Ripperoo's race takes place in Roo's tubes, which is quite a surprise. But he constantly craps out TNT crates, so you need to be sure you're not driving behind him, or you'll be in for quite the bad time. The thing is though, these bosses like to make sure they're always in front, so you've got to keep swerving away, otherwise you're gonna get hit. Swerving all over the track is easy enough for me because I've been doing that anyway. I can't even drive in a straight line normally, so easy. I actually managed to get in front of him very quickly, and if you get in front of the bosses then it makes them very trivial. I even managed to get the shortcut as well. Hey. The only hiccup was when I got a 10% battery notification towards the end, but I managed to coast towards the finish line regardless. Ripperoo gives us a key and then we can move on to the next area. The first track in the next area is Coco Park, which I'm sure that most people who've played this will probably agree is the easiest track. This one and Crash Cove anyway. Would you agree with that? Would you say that these are the two easiest? I think most people would agree. So we're starting out nice and simple. This track is essentially just a circle and there's nothing in the way of obstacles. It's just a straight shot. Although I did hit a TNT and had to do the hop thing to get it off, but in general, it's quite a clean track and it's just a loop to the finish. Very simple, very basic. And I'm not just talking about me. Next up we have Tiger Temple. I wanted to try and get the shortcut in every one of these tracks, but for some reason, when I went to go and get the shortcut for Tiger Temple, I just couldn't throw my beaker forward. I was also getting absolutely annihilated. What is going on? And yeah, I couldn't even throw my beaker forward. Maybe I wasn't holding up hard enough? I don't know. Either way, that whole scene was terrible and embarrassing. As the race went on, I kind of redeemed myself a bit. I still made some mistakes, of course, but I got back on track and I even managed to hit the shortcut. Oh yeah. It didn't really save any time. In fact, it probably lost me time, but that's not important. The important thing is, I hit the shortcut. And I still managed to take the victory in the end. So, all's well that ends well. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Klye, you're winning these races on your first or second try. Where's the challenge? At this point I was thinking that to myself as well. I was thinking this should be tricky, you know, this should be hard. That's what a challenge is. So, for a little bit of fun, I thought I'd kick it up a notch and I'd go and try this on hard mode. fuck that. Honestly, I would love to see someone beat CTR on hard mode with touch controls, but I am not that guy. So I've pussied on back to medium difficulty. The next track is Papu's Pyramid, and I'm very glad that I'm back on medium difficulty. The other racers became a lot more aggressive, which is probably something to do with karma, and it also dawned on me that I wouldn't be able to air brake, so these corners would have to be taken a lot slower than I'd like. I also messed up on the shortcut, which is nice. I did manage to get the other shortcut though, which is really good and it helps a lot. Although I almost fell off the track, but I didn't, so that's good. Even when I'm playing the game normally, I always seem to fall off the track. I don't know why, but for some reason I didn't here. I'm actually quite shocked I held on. On the very last lap, I actually managed the first shortcut. I can't believe it. Amazing. It's always nice when you hit these shortcuts, and it's even nicer when you hit them on a touchscreen. Makes you feel good, you know? Makes you feel something. Yeah, it was a terrible start, but it ended well, so it's alright. Dingo Canyon is up next, and holy shit, this was terrible. It actually started okay, but I ended up getting hit by the armadillo, and then, when I tried to defend myself, I got ass blasted into oblivion. Maybe this is my punishment for backing out from hard mode. I don't know, but I've never seen such a violent display. After all that, I gave it a good go and tried to make a comeback, but I just couldn't manage it. Very disappointing, but you know, at least I got the clip of me getting wrecked. That's something, I suppose. Second try was super easy. I just blazed into the front and then that was it. Win, no problem. Turns out you can win quite easily when you're not getting rammed by rockets. After all this, Papu Papu shows up and challenges us to a race. So we're back on Papu's Pyramid. Holding the controller like a crab for this long has actually made my fingers hurt, which is probably why I messed up on this race so bad. It's got nothing to do with the fact that I'm bad at the game or anything, you know, nothing like that. The first attempt was so bad, I actually restarted the race. That's how bad things were going. Wow. The second attempt, however, was much nicer. I couldn't get the first shortcut though because my hands were in pain. Yeah, that's right. But I did alright and I managed to get the second shortcut very consistently. And thus, I managed to beat Papu Papu. He gives us the key and unlocks the next area, and then we can move on to the next set of tracks. The next track we have is Blizzard Bluff, and it started out quite badly with some lag, and I actually missed the shortcut. I did actually manage to get the shortcut the next time around, and on the last lap, Crash, the little wankor, he hit me, and he took the lead, and like a complete dunce, I actually drove straight into the flask. I don't really know if I feel any sort of consolation here, but it turns out Crash did end up getting hit as well, so at least he didn't take first place. Good. The second try was an improvement, although not by much. I actually missed the shortcut again, twice, but the last lap was great and I ended up speeding ahead with ease. As you can probably tell, it's all about getting a good lead and maintaining that lead, along with hoping that you don't get attacked by the other racers, because, you know, that tends to put a bit of a damper on things. Either way, I won. Dragon Mines is up next, and this track has a very difficult shortcut. I actually skipped it for the first lap because the minecart was a little bit too close for me. However, it turns out what I did wasn't much better. I can't really take corners as accurately as I normally would, and it doesn't really help when you bonk straight into the support pillar. I did manage to get to the shortcut on the second lap, but I was being far too slow and I couldn't pull off the drifts and jumps, so I got squished. For some reason, don't ask me why, for some reason I didn't jump off the side like you're supposed to do, and I got squished again. Yeah, it wasn't looking too good here, but there's some kind of divine intervention happening here. I managed to somehow pull ahead at the very end and take the victory. I'm not quite sure how that worked. Everyone seemed to just slow down and let me win. I'm not sure I deserved that win, but I'll take it. Next up we have Polar Pass, which I was actually able to get to this entrance very easily. Polar Pass has some great shortcuts, but I don't think I could ever pull off that first one using these controls. Playing normally, I can probably hit this 8 times out of 10, but playing like this, I've not got enough speed and I've not got the control, so why I even tried? I don't know. It's worth giving a go, I suppose. And for some reason, I couldn't even get the easy shortcut, because I drove straight into the seal. What a donut. This race, I was all over the place. I was getting some lag as well, so, you know, there is that. It's a great excuse. It's, you know, my go-to excuse when things aren't going so well. But this whole thing was dreadful. I kept trying the shortcut, for whatever reason. It was a disaster from start to finish, and of course, I didn't manage to win. Big surprise, I know. Yeah, that race didn't go so well, so of course I tried again. And the next try started quite bad. I was pressing X to drive, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't listening to me. It took a few attempts, but eventually it decided to work, thankfully. But after that small hiccup, I started to do really well. Besides a few mistakes here and there, but nothing major. Well, I say that, I almost ruined it at the very end, because I missed the shortcut jump. But I was so far ahead that it didn't really make a difference too much. So I ended up taking the win, even after all of those mistakes. See, this game is sometimes really generous. Or there's some kind of angel watching over me. Perhaps. Although I say that, and my old friend shows up. 20% battery. Tiny Arena is up next, and it's pretty simple. There's a lot of areas to drift, and you can get so many jump boosts here, it's incredible. It also seems like the AI doesn't tend to bother with this stuff, and it makes the track really simple and you can get into first place with ease. I made quite a few mistakes, of course, you know, it's bound to happen. I'm playing on a freaking touchscreen, but I'm actually surprised I even made it this far, so, you know, all things considering, it's going quite well. Of course, it does help when you have a lot of experience with the game. I think that's one of the key factors in being able to win. I think if I started this without any knowledge of CTR, I think I'd struggle quite a lot. Although saying that, I'm not going to get too big-headed, because I did suck at the hard mode, and I did pussy out of that, so maybe I should deflate my head just a little bit. This is a very simple track, and there's nothing really of interest, there's no hazards or anything. So whilst I just drive around and try to take first place, I'm going to be really cheeky, and I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I took the win, and then Komodo Joe showed up and challenged us to another race. Turns out the battery was basically flat at this point, so I needed to charge the battery, and I needed to flex my fingers a bit because the pain in my hand was starting to get really bad. But we're back in Dragon Mines, and this boss race is very similar to all the others. If you get ahead, then you've basically won, if you can keep the lead. Because these guys, they only attack behind them. Yeah, a bit like that. I decided that going for the shortcut was probably not in my best interest here, so I just took the regular path. For some reason, I couldn't initiate my drift, and my boost inputs were being completely ignored. It made the race quite tense, and on the last lap, I barely managed to squeeze past that minecart there, and Joe was right up my arse the whole race. If I was to hit anything on this track, if I was to slow down or bump into something, it would definitely be game over and I'd have to retry. Thankfully though, that didn't happen, but it was very tight. The race was also quite close as well. We beat Joe, and he gives us the key to the next area, and off we go. I decided I'd take on Engine Labs first, mostly because it was closest. I like this track, usually. There's a lot of corners, there's a lot of jumps, there's a lot of boosts, and this track makes it so much fun just to get that blue flame and go crazy. Although usually I can air brake and turn the corners, which I can't really do so much here. I also experienced quite a bit of lag at the beginning, which isn't so great. I hit the golden Wumpa box, but I actually drove straight past it and missed the thing, unfortunately. You know, I actually can't remember what they do. Do you get like coins, Wumpa coins for collecting those? I can't remember. I don't think it's too important anyway, so if I miss them, it's not a big deal. I actually started lagging so hard I crashed into the wall. Oh, that was quite fortuitous, wouldn't you say? Nice. I managed to put up quite a decent fight and get into first place on the second lap. And after that, it's pretty much plain sailing, you know? Besides a small hiccup at the end where I pulled off the classic manoeuvre of hitting something and then sliding off the edge of the track. Oh, an absolute classic. Thankfully I was so far ahead it didn't really matter too much, but for whatever reason I seem to be very good at choking at the very end. Oh no, seems like it's a curse. Curse or not, I still managed to take the win, so I'm happy either way. Next up is Cortex Castle. Now there's a lot of tight corners on this track, and with my lack of skill and lack of air brake, this might present a little bit of a problem. I have to take the track quite slowly, even slower when the other racers decide to be a little bit aggressive and attack me. For most of this race I was trailing behind, and for some reason I just couldn't get ahead. I couldn't make up for that lack of speed. I even tried doing the shortcut, and I tried it while I wasn't boosting, so I didn't make it. Oh dear, I'm an absolute cretin sometimes. So yeah, the race wasn't going too well, but on the second lap, I did manage to hit that shortcut. And to be honest, I think making that shortcut was the reason I eventually managed to pull into first. I even managed to hit the shortcut again on the final lap, and I boosted to the finish line. Nice. Now it's time for the track I'd been dreading for this whole playthrough. I was so nervous, I even missed the entrance. Hot Air Skyway. This track barely has any sides, so if I mess up, I'm falling off into the abyss. And it didn't start off particularly well. I was all over the track and I didn't want to take too many risks. Said that weird. I tried to take the quicker path when you get to the jump, and I was too far to the right and I ended up falling off the map, which put me quite far behind. But of course, you never give up, so I kept on going. Getting a bit further into the track, and for whatever reason the AI got really aggressive and decided to ram some bombs at my bum. And let's ignore this last corner. It wasn't going so great, and I expected to be stuck on this track for quite a little while. I'd predicted this though. I feel like this track would probably be my Achilles heel, mostly because I can't bump into walls and the track gets very narrow. I even started to make good progress, and then I got a horrible lag spike. I tell you what, this always happens. Something decides to just suck my megabit and make the game impossible. Although while the gamer demon may be sucking my megabit, there's definitely a gamer angel out there somewhere. Because while I might have been doing really bad and getting some horrible luck, you know, I was pretty much guaranteed to get second place or worse. For some reason, I don't know how, and I don't know why, but Tiny fell off the map and I managed to steal first place at the very end. Did I deserve that? Probably not, but to be honest, I'll take what I can get. There's some serious divine intervention going on here. Klye from the future here. Turns out that my recording balked and it only showed the last few moments of my Oxide Station win, so I actually decided to go back into the arcade mode and play Oxide Station again to get the footage for you. I'm just that nice. And I actually got wrecked quite hard here, so it was very similar to what happened in the original run. First and second place were being very aggressive and were constantly preventing me from getting ahead. And when I did manage to get ahead, they would just shoot my anus. It was very tricky, and I'm not sure if this is true or this is just me being salty. But to me, it seems like the single races in the arcade mode are a little bit trickier than the adventure mode race. Is that true, or is that a kind of placebo? Hopefully some Crash Team Racing expert has watched this far and can answer that for me, because from my research I've been looking up online and it seems a bit inconclusive. There's some people saying it's exactly the same, some people are saying it's easier, and some people are saying it's harder. So I'm not really too sure what to believe there. In my experience, they were more aggressive and therefore it was harder. Funnily enough though, one of the bombs at the end really screwed me over, and it looks really strange here because it passed me and blew up on the wall. But the explosion was so huge that it still hit me. I don't know, looks kind of off. So maybe something fishy is going on here. Either way, I lost. So, I tried again, of course. Second time around it was a pretty tight race and was very similar to the first time, but as always I managed to get some nice boosts, managed to take the corners a little bit smoother than I did before, for the most part anyway. This track is tricky, it's one of the hardest in the game, the base game anyway, but I managed to get ahead, and it seems like if you're playing on medium difficulty, the opponents don't tend to use the blue thing that attacks people in first place, thankfully. So once you get ahead, then it's almost plain sailing if you can just maintain the lead, as always. So of course, if you keep the lead and you take the track decently well, you can win. And that's what I did here. Well done me. Alright then, now it's back to Klye from ages ago to finish off the rest of this video. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. There's still a little bit more to come. Pinstripe Potoroo shows up and challenges us to a race. And unfortunately, that race takes place on Hot Air Skyway. My favourite. I think my divine intervention has kind of run its course here, but you never know, maybe we'll see. Saying that, I actually got stuck on this guy for a long time, and I even had an error in the recording because my storage was full. Thankfully I found this out very early, so I cleared up the storage and then I went back to getting destroyed by Pinstripe. So there's only a few attempts that didn't record, but I mean they all looked quite a bit like this. Yep, that's me, just getting my ass handed to me continuously. It was rough. Really, really rough. Honestly, I thought I'd be stuck here for hours, and I guess this might be my punishment for doing pretty well throughout the regular game, and, you know, also my punishment for wimping out on hard mode. I would absolutely love to see other people try this, especially hard mode. See, that'd be a true test of skill, and internet connection, and device storage, and battery life, and resistance to repetitive strain injury. My hand was killing, and it's still hurting now. This is tough stuff. Although, like I say, I'd love to see other people try this. It would be fantastic. Not just this game, I mean other games as well. Remote play for other games, give it a go, but don't hurt yourself, please. Anyway, back to Pinstripe, and as usual, getting ahead is the key, but Pinstripe is a prick. He's very fast, and his bombs are constant, and he throws them at the worst possible times. Absolute knob end. I think all in all, this maybe took me about 17 tries in total. I've tried to block this from my memory. But yeah, through sheer brute force and will and many attempts and possibly quite a bit of luck, I finally beat Pinstripe. I got ahead and then I didn't make any major mistakes. And this isn't even the final race. Oh, what a pain in the anus. So yeah, it's not over yet. We've still got to race Oxide. And if Pinstripe took me almost 20 tries, how many tries is it going to take to beat Oxide? Well, let's find out, shall we? This race is unfair in general, because if you've played this game, you'll know that Oxide actually cheats. He starts the race before the countdown is even finished. See, that is the mark of a true competitor. And my attempt at racing him was absolutely atrocious. I mean, I couldn't get any of my controls to work, and the game was lagging like crazy, which, you know, is my go-to excuse, as we know. And I was running into everything on the track. This was dreadful. If you're like me and you just run into everything on the track, then there's basically no way to win. And at this point, I'd basically resigned myself to losing, but it's always worth to give it a try, you know, because you never know what might happen, and it's good to get some practice. Even if you come second place, it's good to keep practicing. The game is only over when you make it over. You can always keep on going. So yeah, I'm pretty much guaranteed to lose here, but I did end up getting quite close to him at some point, which gave me that second wind and spurred me on. And sometimes that's all it takes. I also tried to use the power-ups, even though pressing circle when driving is very difficult because remote play doesn't like multiple inputs for some reason, and I can't get my thumb to actually hit X most of the time, so trying to hit X and circle, yeah, not happening. Although some did work and it helped me catch up, just a little bit anyway. Oxide is tough. He litters the map, it's very hard, and I've known people get stuck on him for a very long time. So me, on a touchscreen, I was expecting this to be a couple of hours maybe, which is fine, you know. I'm happy to sit here and try until I eventually win, because then I can prove that yes, you can beat this game, even if it takes a lot of effort. But this first try, yeah, not looking so good. However, the last lap comes around, and yep, whilst I might have been doing terribly, and I was hitting every object on the track, basically I was just being a complete dunce and ruining every opportunity I had to get ahead. Somehow, that gaming angel I mentioned, she swooped in, out of nowhere, and knocked Oxide off the map. I jumped into first place, and I kept the lead. With Oxide not being ahead, he couldn't place things on the track. The track was clean, and I actually beat Oxide on my first try. To be honest, I think that was the game taking serious pity on me. That was insanely strange, and I don't think I deserved to win there. However, I did, so I'm not going to complain. The gaming angels are real. So we beat Oxide and he flies away and cries and then tells us to get the rest of the stuff in the game and then challenge him again for the true ending. Me personally, I'm happy to just leave it here and say that yes, you can in fact beat Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled on mobile using remote play. But would you be happy if I just left it here? Maybe you would. But you know, I did back out of doing hard mode, so I think I owe it to you to get the true ending. Let's go for 100%, shall we? To do that, we need to race on all of the tracks again, but this time we need to collect the CTR letters and the relics. To get the CTR letters, you just have to race the track again and find the letters within the track. A lot of these tend to come naturally, and you can even see some of them during the intro scene. This is a good way to learn shortcuts as well. To get the relics, you just need to beat the tracks as quickly as you can and hit the time boxes. Thankfully, you only need to get a sapphire relic, so you can miss some of these boxes, and you don't have to be too quick. To be honest, I think the best thing about the relic races is that there's nobody else on the track, so that really does take the pressure off, and it's a smooth-ish drive. And then there's also the special stages that we need to complete. There's one of these in every hub, and you just need to collect the crystals. It's quite hard, especially when my controls barely work sometimes. It took me a fair few tries to get these crystals, and I didn't take any optimal routes or anything. And the reason for that is, one, I don't know them, I'm sorry. And two, I can't even drive in a straight line, so optimization, not my strong suit. I just had to Hail Mary and just go for it. And thankfully for me, it ended up working out. But that's not all, because we need to actually do the Gem Cups as well, which is essentially just the same tracks again, but you do 4 of them in a row rather than 1 at a time. And then, yes, there's even more. Once I've got all the gems and all the relics, I need to beat the special tracks. Thankfully, there's only 2 of them, but still, I've got a lot to do. So yeah, I don't think this is going to take too long, so I'll probably see you again very shortly.
Eventually.
Hello again! We've just moved into the year 2069 and I finally finished collecting all of the tokens, the gems, and the relics. I played Turbo Track and it was quite difficult because there's a lot of corners and I barely managed to snag a sapphire time. It's really hard and 2 of my fingers have actually fallen off. Slide Coliseum went really well for some reason, I don't know why, but I was doing incredible. That gaming angel, I don't know where she is now, I've not seen her for years, but she actually managed to swoop down one last time, and I got a platinum relic. My time was even quite close to my controller time. I'm not sure if I should be impressed or embarrassed. Anyway, before the hospital turns off my internet connection again, I have to race Oxide for the final time. I have to take the victory. Bloody hell. Oh, I can't do that voice for much longer. Yeah, that actually took a very long time and probably took years off my life. But we're here now. It's time for the final race. I just need to beat Oxide one more time and I'll have a 100% save file using remote play and mobile phone controls. So let's see how that goes, shall we? It goes horribly. He's much tougher this time around and he makes it very difficult to get in front of him. Of course, it doesn't help that I keep running into everything on the track, which is a nice tradition of mine. And to be honest, I thought I'd basically be stuck here forever. I even tried to use the power-ups, but the ones I were getting were terrible and the buttons are so tiny it's easy to miss them and they'd often just not work, and I'd slap my thumb against the screen continuously, just slapping it and hoping for the best. It wasn't looking good. But you know, I've come this far, so I'm not going to stop. As many tries as it takes, I'm going to keep on doing it until I eventually win. I have to, you know. I've been playing this for weeks. I have to do this. This is the final hurdle and I can't stumble here. We have to win. Although I did have to restart this race quite a lot because I knew that I needed to get ahead as early and as quickly as I possibly could, or I would have such a hard time trying to maneuver myself around this track. It took a long time and a lot of attempts, and I still have pain in my hand from all of this, but eventually, after such a long time, I managed to get ahead, and it was just a matter of keeping that lead. My heart was beating like crazy, I was sweating like mad, and I actually got the shakes, which is something I don't get very often. And that's when you know that this is serious. It's been a very long time since I've felt that nervous energy when playing a game, and I love it. I love that feeling, even though at the moment you don't like it, but it starts to culminate and it builds and it builds and it gets intense. It actually got really close as well, with him being right up my anus. A lot of the time you can hear his power-ups and it just gets in your mind and it puts you further on the edge. But as we know, the further on the edge, the hotter the intensity. I started to really feel it and I had to push that shit into overdrive. All of that effort, all of that practice has led to this moment, and I pushed hard. I managed to take these corners well, I managed to drift well, and I managed to jump well as well. There was a lot of well and a lot of will, and after about 30 or so tries, I finally managed a clean run and I took the victory by a very small margin. And I could finally breathe. Oxide went back to his ship and decided that this time was enough, and he flew away. He did leave me with one last gift though, 10% battery life, which is nice. As our reward for 100%, we got the iconic Crash Dance with Crash and Coco. And for all the blood, sweat and tears and pain in my hands, I would say that in the end, it was all worth it. So, can you beat Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled and even get a 100% save file on mobile using remote play? I'm glad to say that yes. Yes, you can. I think I'm going to need a little bit of a break from the remote play stuff for a while because my hands are balked. So if you've got any other challenge ideas, then please do let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Leave a like and a comment if you want to, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care.